for me, that underscores the rarity and preciousness of the earth and the life upon it. And you can see it looks like more than a dot, but it is in fact less than a pixel. You can see that it is slightly blue, and this is where we live, on a blue dot. On that blue dot, that's where everyone you know and everyone you ever heard of and every human being who ever lived out their lives. It's a very small stage in a great cosmic arena. Just speaking for myself, I think this perspective underscores our responsibility to preserve and cherish that blue dot, the only home we have.
Until now, my life proceeded without great events. A mundane life made of commitments ready to break at any moment, filled with useless ambitions and empty vases. No time for flowers. A life where nothing important really happened, but everything was urgent. There was a perpetual lack of time. Hours overflowed one on top of the other in a cascade. So far, nothing unusual. Nothing extraordinary either. At least nothing that appeared in the lists I used to make when I was younger to draw up the catalogue of things to accomplish before my death, which I estimated would come when I was about 27 years old, thus making me a member of the exclusive 27 Club, in which Kurt Cobain, Robert Johnson, Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and the latest one, Amy Winehouse, reign as masters. My list included projects as diverse as joining the pantheon of my idols, living self-sufficiently in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, moving to Siberia and adopting huskies, becoming a paleontologist and unearthing a new species from the Jurassic era, discovering new stars, or going on an expedition across the ocean to distant, unexplored lands. The projects added up on my list, and the time ahead of me seemed infinite. So infinite that even the premature death I'd predicted for myself did not take away the possibility of accomplishing them all. My path mapped out, a heroic destiny on the horizon, and before me, eternity. And then, time passed, leading the way to the great ball of a normal life. A postal address, a full-time job, a schedule to keep, and Sundays to do what I didn't have time to do on other days. As I hit 27, I hadn't accomplished anything on this famous list of destinies. Autarky in the forest, Siberian dogs, great expeditions, and even death had been replaced by the burden of an ordered and regular life of labor. And in my new forecasts, nothing hinted that a memory would arise, and upset the normal course of events. Memories have this curious tendency to reappear at precisely chosen moments. There is no such thing as coincidence. I was sitting comfortably in this train, crossing fields of opium poppies at the dawn of my 33rd year, when your memory appeared to me, as clear and limpid as the color of water. Not only did your memory come back to me, but it hit all my senses with full force, without any form of indication or warning. I inhaled your scent, tasted the tang of your salt and the sound of your voice. It was all there. I could hear your deep and distant rumble. I could feel your slow back and forth and sensual movement, your gentle rocking, and your violent breath. Your pulse was mine, and each beat was in perfect synchrony. It all felt so real, even more than the reality of the empty, unstoppable train that was my life. To see you again. That's what this larger-than-life memory was telling me to do, to see you again. I didn't know where, how, or when, but I had to see you again. Where this curious memory came from and why, I could not explain, but a new feeling overcame me that was neither the nostalgia of a past love nor the pain of a lost love. To relive this memory was as if every drop of water had returned to its proper place, and every grain of sand was arranged with arithmetic logic. And we were, you and I, and heaven and earth, all of one piece. This feeling became my obsession. It followed me wherever I went. I had to see you again, at all costs. I, who all this time had preferred the buzz of the city, and on rare vacations, the silence of the mountains. I had to go back down to zero, guided by your rumbling and my old memories. The first time we met was back in 1989. Because of our age difference, I was only a few months old, yet you were already an old friend of my father. I don't remember anything about it, but judging from my childhood photos, I was already crazy about you. We saw each other again a few times certain summers in Brittany and on the Ile de Ré. You amused me a lot. From that time, I remember above all your cheerful air, your provocative touch. You were always coming and leaving with the same imperturbable assurance, without ever knowing whether you were going to stay or when I would see you again. And then there was the summer of 2004. I had decided to learn to surf in Osgore. And it is there, on the Atlantic coast of southern France, that I discovered your impetuous character, your stormy streak. Your restless nature always kept me at a distance. You frightened me. You frightened me and amused me less and less. Was it because I had grown up? I don't know. In any case, you wouldn't let me get close to you. You overwhelmed me with the slightest wave, in an incessant and sometimes even violent flow. There were others who knew how to tame you, but it was as if I, now a teenager, had lost your attention. Or worse, the means to get it. Either way, I went unnoticed. I was a quiet girl, it's true, so I resented you. A lot. That's when I became trapped in a paradox I've never been able to get out of. I hated your detachment, but somehow I loved your indifference. Your so beautiful indifference. You were always the same, with more or less wrinkles depending on the weather, but you were the same. I loved your permanence, your sincere eloquence, and your pure transparency. I even envied it sometimes. Who has never dreamed of being invisible, to see the others as they are? You were there and everywhere at the same time, impassive to the hysteria of the crowds pressed to your shore. And then I came less and less, resigned to the idea that you would never want me. I've never proven to be very persistent when it comes to love. I've always run away at the slightest cloud. But now I know that you have to love them, that you have to love the clouds. But you didn't tell me. You let me go, and looking back, I suspect you knew I would come back one day. Am I that predictable? Anyway, the years passed. I would check on you from time to time, and then I didn't come at all. I told everyone I didn't like the sea, that it was always full of idiots, and that I preferred the altitude of the mountains. I sought rest there, immobility, a reassuring, constant presence, an unsinkable love. Solitude. I heard nothing but the birds, the rustling of the leaves and the thickness of the trees, and the sound of my footsteps. Walking on land doesn't take much. It just takes good shoes and a little bit of willpower. And then I strictly stopped going to your beaches. Any beach. Even the most idyllic ones couldn't keep my attention for a second. You were the favorite attraction for vacationers, and I hated those images of mass tourism that I saw on TV and postcards. I said to myself, never again. I saw them trashing your beauty, and you kept giving them everything they expected. So I forgot about you, put you aside and shut you out. At least, that's what I thought. Until this memory and the order it gave me. To see you again. I arrived last night and was welcomed by the 2 sailors who live aboard the sailboat on which I will be joining you. A woman and a man that I will call Janice and Jimmy for the time of this letter. Not that they wish to be anonymous, but they have all the characteristics of the rock stars I admired as a teenager, and that amuses me. They have poise, a daring look, a taste for adventure, and above all, a strong sense of insubordination. Janice and Jimmy are made of the same wood as their boat, solid and authentic. With them, I risk nothing. I will be in good company, as it is necessary in such circumstances. The man I was living with deserted just before I left. Another coincidence that is no coincidence. He certainly gave me the freedom that I couldn't take. We humans are strange animals. We need a lot of courage to simply take our freedom. I've heard a lot about you, so I don't know what to expect, or where to start. I know you've grown old, but you still hide your weariness under your best appearances. Some species don't seem to change until they die. Maybe you're one of them, or maybe it's too early to see it with the naked eye. I am of a species that ages slowly, gradually, evident through a host of small details that appear day after day, and that we try to reverse with the breakthroughs of modern chemistry. Botox, beauty, and eternal youth are the touchstones of our civilization. Old age is not something we value. We park our parents in buildings where they can fade away and die out of sight, in silence. Death is a taboo that we try to ignore and deny, and when it comes, we want it to be discreet and as quiet as possible. There is no celebration, only funeral rites. Old age does not fit the world we have built for ourselves, which only allows the light and a bright white smile. Old age, on the other hand, turns us yellow like old photographs. It slows us down, diminishes us, and gradually takes away the usefulness we have given ourselves. So we strive to stay alive as long as possible, to gain a few hours. Sometimes to the detriment of others, of the world, with an elementary savagery that gives us the illusion of evading our condition as simple mortals. Nothing of what existed as it was on Earth was enough for us, so we had to structure the organic, divide the unit, distribute the whole, and then destroy it in order to reign supreme. A madness of grandeur that pushes us to reduce everything to our size. I don't know if we will one day express a unanimous regret at this mass extinction, or if this destruction is simply inevitable by nature. I had heard that you had lost some of your splendor under your surface, that coral reefs were bleaching and perishing one after the other, that the Great Barrier Reef, which I hoped to have the time to see one day, was gradually disappearing. I think this is another one of the dreams I must cross off my list. I've seen continents of plastic covering your surface for miles, and heard that microparticles are poisoning countless animals, both tiny and great, endangered and common. I've read that tons of animals are being slaughtered by illegal fishing. I've seen oil tankers gushing poison into you. I've seen your beaches devastated by humans. I've seen the barbarity we are capable of. And all this time, I've told myself that you would make it. That's what my mother always tells me, even in the most difficult moments of my life. I'm not worried about you. You'll get through this. So, I thought, you'll get through this, as will we, even as we waste your wealth. And then there was this memory, and after it, incessant visions of an apocalyptic future. So I finally opened my eyes to two tragic truths. You are dying, and my mother was wrong. You won't make it on your own, nor will I. We never make it on our own. The myth of Atlas is only a myth. No one can carry the weight of the world on their shoulders alone, not even you. In recent years, there has been a series of events that make me wonder whether you are an ally or a foe. I think you know that. In December 2004, the news informed me that you swept away 230,000 people in 14 countries after a magnitude 9.1 earthquake. Entire cities destroyed, a tsunami washing over them. One of the worst natural disasters in human history, they say. In 2011, another tsunami killed thousands in Japan and destroyed the Fukushima nuclear power plant. These images have largely contributed to the panic you may have raised in some of us. Me first. Drowning is the worst death a human can wish. And I think I got this belief from the disasters I've seen over the last 20 years. Storm surges, rogue waves, ravaged cities. Something was happening. We were talking about the effects of global warming on our planet. We were talking about the excessive activity of human beings, about our tendency to overconsume, about the melting of the ice caps. And you were just the end of the chain, the last one on the list, slowly raising your level as if to raise your voice, silently. Since I was born, climate change has been a topic discussed on every continent, like a rumor to be verified. But there is nothing alarming about the change. No more than a disruption, which at most implies a slight variation that is reversible and only relatively worrying. No more than warming, which is not such a frightening word on its own. But what I see, what I hear, looks like something much more serious than a little warming, than a simple disruption. What I see looks like agony.
Komm, wir müssen los. Wir müssen weg. Nach hinten, komm. Wir müssen nach hinten. Komm her. Spring fort som fan. Spring. I just happened to look over my shoulder. There were some people standing up. Other people had started to run.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change pre-report speaks of cataclysmic fallout within 30 years. Fallout that is already underway for some of the humankind living in coastal cities, and for the non-human. You, the forests, and all the species that are now experiencing climate change, as they say. In a few decades, you have gone from being an inexhaustible resource to the most vulnerable of us all. According to the United Nations, we are entering the ocean decade. You have a decade to your name. Between you and me, tributes like this are never a good omen, like the medals we give to the last survivors. But maybe that's what you are, a survivor. And to save what's left of you, we'd have to rethink our whole existence, to admit that the drop of water and the human being have the same weight, that they have the same value, the same importance. But the governments that lead us do not have this humility. Their awareness of disaster stops where their comfort begins. And comfort has become abundance, excess, an orgy of planetary gluttony that sucks up your resources and eats up all your energy. I belong to the species responsible for all this infamy. So this letter is not a complaint. It is a confession, a plea for pardon, and an act of resistance. I have given in, like many others, to a useless consumption of goods of all kinds. I have swallowed chemically transformed food. I have bought quantities of things contained in boxes and plastic bags. Bottles, trinkets, clothes that have gone around the world 3 times. I have smoked cigarettes, taken baths, eaten chocolate every day, and drunk liters of coffee that have not helped my conscience to rest. I have sent countless emails, to say nothing. I have taken cheap flights. I have done everything that modern Homo sapiens from rich countries does today without thinking for a second that it should be stopped. Globalization is a train that is hard not to take when you come from where I was born. It is a sign of success, a form of progress, a progress that is heavy to bear for the earth that is sinking under the weight of our indifference. The first book that was placed in my hands on the boat was a book by Anita Conti, the so-called Lady of the Sea. It's an old book from 1952 called Racleur d'Océan, in which she recounts her expedition on the trawler Bois Rosé. At the time, we knew almost nothing about you, but Anita may have already sensed, back in 1952, that this is where we would be today. Billions of people scraping the oceans bare. I haven't done anything for days. I look out the porthole at the weather, and then I keep myself busy with some reading while waiting for our departure. Thunderstorms have been forecast, and rain is pounding the deck continuously. Jimmy reads the weather forecast every day, trying to figure out when we can leave. I have discovered that for a sailor, reading the weather is a near religious ritual. Their maps are not like the ones we are used to seeing in the newspapers or on TV. While we look at the land, they look at the blue expanse that surrounds it. There, you see the prevailing winds, the anticyclones, the depressions, your mood and the strength of your swell. All this beautiful world in continuous movement, in a flow of fabulous colors that I could watch without end. The evolution of the weather is decisive for the crossing. It is the only tool able to measure the danger. And danger at sea is not the small spring shower that would dull a day's walk, but a storm of incomprehensible, destructive power. And the slightest inattention could be fatal. So everything is detail and the precision of the clockmaker in a world of invisible and permanent movement. Your waves, your tides, make me want to be even more motionless than I already am. It's as if something is always about to happen and never does. And the clouds that form when you evaporate add to this expectation of intensity as the light passes through them. And the wind carries them landward, where they draw shadows that overlap on the sand already rippled by your last passage. Behind me, there are houses on the waterfront. each closer to the shore than the other. And over there, an abandoned building in the middle of the beach. It was evacuated 7 years ago because of erosion and triggered a merciless war between the owners and the city. The first climatic evictees of France. It seems that an agreement was reached this year and that the building will be torn down in 2022. This whole story is madness, another folly fueled by money and the possession of a perennial habitat. Now, you are taking back the land, in this area at a rate of 15 meters per year. So everyone is panicking over their plot of land and their sea view condo. Global warming doesn't worry anyone more than that. We see forests sinking into the sand, blockhouses that resemble islands, and we are still fighting to see who will earn the most from his apartment sinking into the water. But the history of humanity proves that we have almost always been nomads. We move towards and away from the coast depending on your mood and your temper. It would take me too long to explain human beings to you, and I would be incapable of doing so anyway. But this example illustrates all that we were undertaking in the wrong way. The smallest shelter we can conceive of has value as a refuge. But now, our coastal shelters are being swallowed up like Atlantis, and their value is gone. The earth has been bought, cut up, divided, dispossessed of itself. Building on a square meter of salt water is impossible, so you are worthless in our eyes. You are only there to embellish our vacation photos. You make our children laugh. It stops there. And little by little, the symptoms of the evil that eats you up inside make you eat away at our territories. We talk about the retreat of the coastline because what is important to us is this line clearly drawn on our map, the land on which our houses stand because we have appropriated the world to that point. We defend ourselves against you at all costs. We fortify the seashore, move sand dunes from one beach to another, so that our map and all its printed borders remain unchanged. We read the land in blueprint, but don't look at it in nature. But this precise line drawn on our map with a single stroke, it does not exist, and it will never exist. You are 4.4 billion years old, and our existence is even less memorable than any of your waves. We all belong to the same Earth space, with dotted lines. We are a few billion particles of stardust on a small pale blue dot in the universe, said Carl Sagan. The same man who wrote the history of the cosmos on a 365-day calendar. And in this calendar, Homo sapiens was born on December 31st at 11:56 p.m. This is it. Here we are, waiting in the bay for the perfect time to leave. Janice and Jimmy are busy preparing the sailboat for the journey. I can see a man in the distance, standing above waves crashing against the rocks. I feel your restlessness. It is mixed with my impatience to join you. But every movement is a struggle, and I have no choice but to follow your pace. You do not spare me. I have a harness, and I hold on to whatever I can find. One hand for yourself, one hand for the boat, they repeat to me, laughing as I stagger along like a child learning to walk along the deck. I sit down and then stand up. I see the land getting farther away as we move across you. I realize I have never seen the world in front of me until now. It is so small. So very small. I no longer see the man above the rock, but only the whiteness of the foam that gushes out in spurts. I see the mountains in the distance, appearing as a slight outline, dazzled by the sun. The nausea is unbearable. I take a deep breath. And for the first few minutes, I look back. I look behind me at the man who left me, at the life I led, at the land that becomes almost nothing, and then nothing. In front of us, birds are chasing fish and offering themselves as a spectacle. The sun comes closer to your surface, and you sparkle. At sunset, your calm breath takes us slowly into the night. The sky wraps us in a veil of pale pink mist. Your skin goes through all shades of blue, pink, purple, until black. I thought I was meeting a monster, but it is your infinite sweetness that floods me. I wake up before sunrise. It is 4:30 a.m. I brew some coffee and climb the ladder to the deck. Jimmy is already up. A swallow has joined us and landed on a pulley of one of the sails. It watches over us in a religious silence. We no longer dare to speak so as not to frighten it. Each of us is in their rightful place. The silence that precedes the day is a gift. The moon is full and illuminates us. We slide on your black fabric as on shiny silk. My seasickness is gone. Nothing comes in the way of my tranquility. My cup of coffee in my hands, the silence, the swallow, Jimmy and I. We wait. The earth is still far away, and that idea is reassuring. You are no longer a threat. You are our home, our mother. Here, suspended between air and water, I feel every second of my existence. I know I have found what I came for. We all wait for the same thing, in silence, without saying anything to each other. The first rays of the new rising sun. And before us, eternity.
been a while and God knows it's changing as the wind blows. I heard it's like sails on the sea, folding, folding, folding. It's been a while and God knows it's turning out the wind blows. I heard it's like sails on the sea, folding, folding, folding. The day I left your hand, what color was the pain? How strong the rain? Of the deep of the ocean, I know nothing. Of the surface of the